Alrighty, well, good morning and welcome everyone. I think folks are still filing into the meeting here, but it's just a couple minutes past 11, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. Welcome to the Financial Empowerment Series, Additional Tools for Homeless Service Providers. My name is Jason Austin. I'm the membership organizer with the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness. We have partnered with the housing case management staff with Hopelink to bring this training series to the community. This training series is based around the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, a toolkit that was designed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to have strengths-based, client-centered conversations around money and resources to help guide the folks that we work with through these difficult financial times. A couple of items before we begin. We do encourage folks to rename themselves to include their names, pronouns, and organizational affiliation so that we know who is in the room with us today. We do ask that you please remain muted to avoid crosstalk, although if you feel comfortable sharing your camera, we love to see everyone's faces. This meeting is going to be recorded so that people who are not able to attend today can still review this material. Please note that you will not be included in that recording unless you unmute yourself and turn your camera on to present. Today's training covers modules 4 and 5 of the toolkit. You should have received a reminder email with these tools in advance. If not, don't worry, I will be providing links to all of these documents in the chat, so please be on the lookout for those things. This training series does encourage folks to complete a pre and post survey so that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau can sort of track your progress if you're looking for a certification. The pre-link is there and I'll work to put that in the chat. We have a packed agenda, so without any further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Emily Goodright with Hopelink to kick things off.
Hi, everyone. So before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick disclaimer. I think Donna's turning to. So the CFPB created the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, as well as the materials that we are presenting today. But Hopelink and Skitch are not employers or agents of the CFPB, so any views that we express today or opinions that are presented are not necessarily the views or the opinions of the CFPB. And now I will hand it over to Joy, who is going to get started with Module 4.
Hello, everyone. All right, if we can move to the first slide of Module 4. And next slide, there we go. So we're going to start today off by talking about defining what spending is, which spending is money you use to pay for pretty much anything. Could be wants, needs, obligations, or any of the ways that you just spend that money. And so the first thing we want to kind of talk about is what the difference is between needs, wants, and obligations. Needs are things that you have to live. And for some of us, those may look different than for others. Wants are things that you can survive without, but you really want. And obligations are things that you have to pay. Student loans, car loans, child support, numerous things. To start today off, though, we're going to have a little conversation in the chat. I'm going to give some example expenses, and I would ask that you define if you think it's a need, want, or obligation, and why you think it is that way, and then also why you could see why maybe someone else might not see it as a need, want, or obligation. So in thinking about that, let's start with rent. For me, it feels like it is a need and an obligation, but not everyone feels that way. Like if you're homeless, maybe paying rent isn't your biggest need or obligation. Maybe paying your cell phone bill so you have internet and communicate is. All right, so now I'm just going to list a few others. All right, so paper towels, do we consider those needs, wants, or obligations? And I'll give you guys a few minutes to respond in the chat. Want, okay, want. Does anybody think that could be a need? Yep, paper towels are a want. I consider it a want because I like to use reusable items like wash rags. I can see how someone without a washer might feel differently. Agreed. I mean, yeah, if it feels like a need, but I really think it is a want. Yeah. All right, let's talk about another one. How about pet food? Is that a want, need, or obligation? Need, okay. Why do we see pet food as a need? Need / obligation, okay. Obligation if you have a support animal. Yes, that is very true. If you have a pet, you need to feed them. Yep. It does depend on the animal. Yeah, it definitely does depend on the animal. Need if the choice is to have a pet, or an obligation. Definitely an obligation if you have a pet. Some programs offer free food for cats and dogs, but not for other animals. That is very true. It is often easier to get stuff for your dog or pet or dog or cat, but other animals not so much. Obligation if you have pets. Okay. And then we'll do one more. Home-based internet connection. Do we see that as a want, need, or obligation? Need. Okay. And why would that be a need? Need for virtual school and work. Need, especially with COVID times. Need, I think, if you have kids in school or work. Need in this day and age. Yeah, I mean, I think need for school and work depending on COVID times. Want if you use it for social media, but need if you need it for work or school. These days, it is a need if you are working from home or you have school or children from home. It's a need for bill pay, rent, school, and work. I think the interesting thing about internet is, maybe 5-10 years ago, we wouldn't have seen it as a need. But definitely today with COVID times, it's a need to work, it's a need to have your children attend school. It's really a need for even, like these Zoom conversations and communications. Often it is considered a want, but these days it's a need, especially if you have kids and our need to work or look for work, since community resources or places you usually go to or that have internet are very limited. That is very, very true. I mean, you can't just walk into the library and sit in a row with all those computers right now. All right, so now that we've established kind of what spending is and what needs, wants, and obligations in spending is, let's move on to the next slide. So this is a tool, and Donna, you can all go ahead and pull up the tool. We're gonna play around with it a little bit. This tool is great for you to help figure out exactly where you're spending your money and how much you're spending your money in certain areas. Because, if you feel that you're overspending or you want to make changes to how you're spending your money, first you have to see exactly how you are spending it, where it's going. And I know for me, every time I do this, I'm always kind of slightly shocked and disappointed about how much eating out I do. And I'm sure we all have, that one category we're like, what? I actually spend that much? Because it's little things, they add up. So I'm actually going to show you how this works, and we're going to fill it out. So Donna, can you put spending for the month of February 2021? Perfect. And for this, we're going to do that this person has a cell phone bill that they pay on the second week for $50. And then we're going to say that they do have a debt payment. Maybe it's credit card, court fee, who knows. But they pay that on the fourth week for $40. And as you watch, you'll be able to see that these totals get put into, and then when we scroll down, they'll be totaled out for us, which is really nice for those of us who don't want to have to do the math. But then we're going to look at eating out. So we're going to say that every 2 weeks, this person sends $20. So week 1, they spend $20, and week 3, they spend $20. So maybe it's right when they get paid, every payday, they order pizza for dinner, once every 2 weeks, who knows? For education and childcare, we're going to say on the first week, they spend $300, probably for their childcare subsidy. Entertainment and personal care, we're going to put 15 in the first week, and that could be anything: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. There's so many different entertainment options right now. And then for groceries and supplies, we're going to put 200 on week 1 and 200 on week 3. So basically, after payday, every 2 weeks, they go shopping and they spend 200. Then we're going to skip down to housing and utilities, because we're going to say, they're on state health insurance, they don't have health expenses right now, and helping others it's not in the budget right now. But for housing and utilities, we're going to say they spend $1,000 at the beginning of the month, the first week, for rent. And then we're also going to skip pets and go down to transportation and say on the 3rd week, they refill their Orca card with $50. So now looking at this, you can kind of see how it auto calculated for you, which is really nice. And it does list that other section because, depending on circumstances, maybe there's an expense that isn't in any of these categories or one you specifically want to keep as separate. But this is just a great tool to help you track where your spending is going and where your money is going. We are going to show you a cash flow budget later, and this is great to start with that spending aspect to then pull into your cash flow budget. All right, we can go back to the slideshow. And next slide, please. All right, and then I'm just going to show you this one. If you can just pull it up, Donna. This tool, I find helpful just because you don't always know. I mean, when I was a kid, I just assumed bills were all the 1st or the 15th. But in today's world, that's not how bills are. It all depends on when you start your cell phone plan or you start your internet or, credit cards, everything has different dates. My student loan is in the middle of the month. So this kind of helps you see and put down the dates of, all right, so in the beginning of the month, these are the bills that come out of my first paycheck and what days, and why maybe I am running short, or maybe I see, oh, well, I keep getting an overdraft fee because I'm paying my bill on time. But if I had 2 more days, if I could move that bill to 2 days later, then maybe I wouldn't have those overdraft fees because I would have already been paid again. So it kind of gives you that full calendar picture of when the money is coming out of your account and when you're getting paid to kind of decide, all right, maybe I do need to call and have some of these bills adjusted, or at least their dates, because most creditors and most bill collectors are willing to work with you to adjust that date if that'll be easier. So this is just a good tool to start with tracking that. And we'll go back to the PowerPoint now. And next slide. We'll pull this one up too, Donna. This is cutting expenses. So this tool is primarily to help, say, after you've done that spending tracker, it shows you the different areas that maybe you could cut expenses and different ways for those specific categories that you could. So for core expenses, I'll renew my license and registration on time to avoid late fees. Eating out, I'll bring my own lunch to work. So when you do look at the spending tracker and you see, okay, I don't like that I'm spending this much in this category, you can then come to this cutting expenses tool, look at it, go to that same category, and it gives you some options or some ideas as to how to kind of cut that spending. And yeah, it covers all of them. All right, we'll go back to the slideshow. And next slide. And this is prioritizing bills. So we can pull this one up. And one thing to note with this is everybody has different priorities depending on where you live, your culture, your background, just, what's happening in your life. So try not to make any judgments as to why someone might prioritize one bill above another. Granted, we are trying to help people pay the right bills, but I mean, it just depends. Like I said earlier, if you're homeless, maybe rent isn't a bill you're prioritizing, but your cell phone is. Or court fines aren't being prioritized. There's just different things. Or in today, because we have the eviction memorandum, rent, you're not going to get kicked out if you don't pay your rent. But how are you going to work if you can't get to work with your car, or if you don't have internet to work from home? So this is just a great tool to kind of help you go through thinking of things I need to for a job. And in this, transportation, equipment, today it's internet, or a computer at home. Insurances I need to pay, just evaluating which one of these things you need right now if you can't afford everything, which are actual needs and which are wants and obligations. This helps you define that. And we can go back to the slideshow. And I believe I'm handing it off to Jason now.
Thank you, Joy. We are going to give you a rough halfway break through this training with a quick update on what we at the Coalition on Homelessness have been working on. The Coalition on Homelessness has partnered with an organization called Path with Art to offer remote arts enrichment opportunities for social service programs in King County. We have an excess of back to school supplies from previous school drives, plus a number of extremely generous donations during COVID times, thanks to our partners at the Columbia City Church of Hope. Path with Art is an art healing organization that has been taking our supplies, putting them into art kits, such as what you see here, and then sending them off to social service agencies to have activities for folks to participate in. If you scroll forward, I can show you a couple examples of the art projects. These were put together by some of the folks living at one of the Plymouth supported housing programs in downtown Seattle. We know that remote enrichment opportunities are sort of rare and hard to come by these days. People are looking for things to do and ways to express themselves creatively. If you are a member of our coalition and you are interested in moving forward with bringing these to your clients, please reach out and let me know. We just worked with New Beginnings to send some art kits to their folks. I see we have a couple of folks from Vine Maple Place on the call. I know that we are working with you to get this in the coming weeks. Please reach out. My email is simply jason@homelessinfo.org, and we'd love to collaborate. This is an example of the benefits of being a member of our coalition. The Coalition on Homelessness is a membership-driven organization. We count roughly 65 or so nonprofit social service providers, including Hopelink and many of the folks on this call as our members. We're in the middle of our 2021 membership drive. So if you are an organization who is hoping to join us, I'd love to connect with you to make sure that we can secure your membership. And again, please do reach out to myself. I will put my email in the chat here. I also want to give a quick plug to our last membership meeting. We host our membership meetings on the third Thursday of every month. We then record those meetings and create a copy of all of the materials covered. This month, we were joined by folks with the Black Brilliance Research Project who talked about participatory budgeting. There's an opportunity for folks in Seattle to actually control a good portion of what the city's budget goes towards through a public process. We also heard updates on some new and expanded shelter programs, as well as some additional day center capacity in Seattle. I will put a link in the chat here. This link also takes you to a registration link if you want to join us for our next membership meeting on March 18th. We would love to have you there. And as an advocacy organization, we are deep in our statewide legislative advocacy work. It is roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of the way through the legislative session, and a number of key bills are still in play that could really make a huge difference for the folks that we serve. To cover some of this content, I'm actually going to hand things over to Selena Salongo, our somewhat newly hired Coalition Advocacy Coordinator, who's been doing an excellent job of keeping the community updated and creating opportunities for clients as well as case managers to engage in our work. So Selena, thanks so much for joining our training this morning.
Hi, everyone. It's still morning, right? I can say good morning. Yeah, my name is Selena Salongo. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Thank you for letting me be here. I just wanted to talk about some advocacy opportunities and then let you know as well about how you can continue to stay involved with state legislative advocacy. We have a number of really important bills that are being considered this year. Some of them are pretty urgent, and we definitely don't want to wait another year for them to go through the whole process again. So that is why advocacy is really critical this year. And because it's virtual, it's a lot more accessible than it has been in previous years, where you've had to drive to Olympia. So there are some really easy ways to get involved. And so, as an example, today, the House Bill 1078, which is also called the Voting Rights Restoration Bill, which would restore voting rights to an estimated 20,000 Washington community members who are disproportionately Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and other community and come from other communities of color. It would restore their voting rights. And the way it does so is by changing our current voting rights laws to make sure that once people leave confinement after felony incarceration, they get their voting rights restored automatically. Currently, you have to wait months until you're no longer under community supervision. So it would clarify a lot of things. It's a really landmark bill, and we really want to see it pass this year. So I will put an action link in the chat. Oh, looks like Jason's already got it. Thanks, Jason. And so there are a couple ways that you can use that action link. You just put in your information and you can get a really easy email form that you can use to contact your lawmakers. You can also, there's an option to call your lawmakers. You can also call the legislative hotline, which is, I highly recommend it. It's a really easy way to let your lawmakers know how you feel about certain bills. And then I wanted to also give you some information about our Speak Up pop-ups is what they're called. They're state legislative advocacy workshops, and they're every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. So they're really short workshops and weekly, and they just kind of give you the lowdown of what bills relating to housing and homelessness need your advocacy, and then we also give you time to and tools and tips and help you contact your lawmakers. So if you want to help make change at the state policy level, I highly recommend these workshops. I'll drop the, oh, looks like Jason's already dropped the registration link in the chat. And then I also just, one final plug is if you for some reason can't attend the workshops, we do have a full roundup of what is covered at each workshops, including what bills and how you can get involved. And so I'll just put the address or the URL for that in the chat. It also has a state legislative advocacy toolkit. And so we're in the process of compiling even more. Things are changing really quickly because it's a year unlike any other, given that everything is virtual. But there's some base information about here's how you can contact your lawmakers, here's how to figure out who your lawmakers are, and here are what bills are important. And we'll soon be publishing our legislative priorities list there as well. So I think that's all from me, but does anybody have any questions? Great. Well, I'll pop my email in the chat so you can reach out to me at any time. Thank you.
Okay, and then I am going to be presenting the first part of Module 5. And so Donna, yep. Perfect. Okay, so we are going to be talking about cash flow in Module 5. So I first, to start, have a few questions to ask you guys, and we'll have you pop your responses in the chat. So my first question is, what is a cash flow budget? What do you think a cash flow budget is? Anyone have any guesses? Okay, the money coming in shows when money is coming in and out. Liquidated assets, a record of all money coming in and all money going out. So yeah, that's really dynamic, not static. Money in and out. It's when you plan for paying bills based on when money is coming in. It's useful if you don't have a consistent paycheck. For sure, all of those are great. So yeah, a cash flow budget really projects what money you expect to come in and how much you think you'll spend each week and when you expect the expenses to occur. So it's combining your kind of income and benefits tracking and your spending tracking into a budget that shows the flow of both. So my next question is, how is a cash flow budget different from a regular budget? Which the first answers to the first question definitely point to that, but I'll let you answer that one in the chat. So actual numbers, so actual amounts of money in and money out. So regular budget is more strict, definitely could be. A budget is a plan for spending and how much. A cash flow is when money is being spent. And then timing of things. A regular budget is a plan for the whole month, like a big picture, for sure. A regular budget is the same amount each month. A regular budget definitely projects more of what people want their budget to be. So yeah, a cash flow budget really tracks, again, the timing of income and spending. It breaks down kind of a monthly budget week by week and accounts for when income and benefits are expected and when they must be used for wants, needs, and obligations. And I know personally, when I'm working with my case management clients and we are doing a cash flow budget, we're not doing a projection of what they're hoping to spend. We're really looking at what are they actually spending each month, what income is actually coming in each month. And so it's a better way for them to look at how to move things around to better kind of fit their budgeting wants and needs. And so then my last question for you all is, what do you think may be the benefit to a cash flow budget approach versus a regular budget? More awareness of finances, can show where the money is actually being spent. Regular can be hypothetical. Yep, cash flow is more literal. Shows what is really happening versus what you think is happening, for sure. It definitely gives people, so a cash flow budget can help identify immediate needs and obligations so as to not incur late fees, for sure. Yeah, it definitely is a good way to give clients a better picture of kind of what's going on with their expenses, what's actually going on with their expenses. So no overspending without showing of where money is being spent. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is actually show you your money, your goals cash flow budgeting tool. which is fantastic. So I'll have Donna open that, and then I have and then Jason, pop that in the chat too if you want to follow along. So when Donna first opens the tool, it has a getting started page, which will tell you really how to use the tool. And something that's really helpful in filling out this tool is using two tools from previous modules. So in module 3, you have the income and benefits tracker, which we presented on last month. And then Joy just talked to you guys about the spending tracker. And so those are the two tools from other modules that you're going to want to use to fill out this tool. So we are going to actually show you how to fill out the tool because it's fancy and auto-populates, which is super helpful. So you don't have to do any of the math. So the first thing that you're going to want to do with this cash flow budget tool is, like it says, add money you receive each week. And so for this client, who is the same client that Joy used for her spending tracker, they have a job and they get paid every 2 weeks or every other week or twice a month, however you want to say it. So in week 1, they get paid $700. So I'll have Donna put that in the chat. So yeah, they get paid $700 from their job. And then in week 1, they also get paid $120 from SNAP, which is their food benefit. And then $400 in other, which is a child support payment they get at the beginning of the month. And so they end that week, the beginning of the month, with $1,420. Oh, and so what you're going to want to do for the cash flow budget, and I'll have Donna do this, is put a starting balance of $200. So this person, before she got paid this first week, had $200 in her bank account. And so then she ended the week with $1,420 for a total income. And then this client also gets paid the third week of the month, $700 from her job. And so that is her picture of her income for the month of February. So now we're going to go down to expenses and add those in. And these are the same expenses that Joy had in her income, in her spending tracker, but I'm going to tell them to Donna again to fill out. So first, the second week of the month, the client pays $50 to her cell phone. And then the fourth week of the month, she pays $40 to a debt payment. And then twice a month, her and her family eat out. And so the second week of the month, she pays $20 for that. And then the fourth week of the month, she pays $20. And then this client has to pay childcare expenses. So the first week of the month, she pays $300 for childcare. And then she's also paying $15 at the beginning of the month for a Netflix subscription. And then twice a month, this client pays for groceries. And so she pays $200 her first week of the month, and then $200 her third week of the month. And then this client also has rent and utilities that she's having to pay. So she pays that at the beginning of the month, which is $1,000. And then this client takes the bus. And so she's reloading her Orca card the third week of the month for $50. So now I'm going to kind of show you how this tool, what this tool is showing you. So for week 1, the client had a total income of $1,420. But then because of her expenses that week, she ended the week with negative $95 in her bank account. That number is then pulled up to week 2 as the starting balance of week 2 and ending balance of week 1. And then that's what goes on the whole month. So those numbers are pulled up to the next week as the starting balances. And so this is a good way for you and your clients to visualize when money is coming in, when money is going out, what weeks your client is ending the week with not enough money in their bank account or in the negative, in which weeks your client is ending the week with a lot of money in their bank account and not in the negative. And we'll show you some more tools later on, but you can use this to then think about, okay, how then can we move around expenses or increase income in certain places or payments of income in certain places to make sure we're not ending the week in the negative. And the really great thing about this tool is it does all of the calculating for you. So you don't have to worry about that. So you can go in with your client and kind of mess with it to see where things are going to work as far as where expenses should land. Because there are a lot of expenses that you can kind of manipulate where they land during the month or work out payment plans. So you're not paying really large expenses on weeks where your client isn't making or bringing in enough income. So you don't end up in the negative that week. So this is the cash flow budgeting tool. And now I'm going to have Donna go back to the slideshow. And we are going to do a little activity. Jason should have sent you all in a reminder email a copy of the activity, and he may drop it in the chat. Perfect, there it is. So cash flow scenario activity. So what we're gonna do is first I'm gonna read kind of a general overview of this client situation. Then we're gonna look at this client's budget, and I'm gonna give you guys maybe 3 or 4 minutes to look at that budget. And then I'm going to have some questions to ask you about that client's cash flow scenario and how we might be able to kind of improve that scenario for them. So this client is Raphael, and he is a single parent with 2 children. He is often late with his rent and other bills because he doesn't have the money when he needs it. So his income isn't coming in when he needs to pay those expenses. So after tracking his spending, he developed a cash flow budget with somebody that he's working with in the community through a program. So using that cash flow budget, I would like you to think about some recommendations to help Raphael make ends meet, and I'll have some questions to kind of facilitate that conversation. So Donna, if you can go to the next slide. So I'm gonna let you guys sit with this budget for maybe 4 minutes till 11:45, and then we'll come back and I will ask you some questions and have you respond in the chat. So I'm gonna give you until 11:45 to kind of look over this budget. Alrighty, so now I'm going to ask a few questions about this and have you respond in the chat, and I will report back what you all say. So just looking at this budget, when is Raphael running out of money during the month? So week 1 and 3. Yeah, week 1 and 3. So at the end of week 1, he has a negative 361 balance. And at the end of week 3, he has a negative 463. I think that's, yeah, 463, 53, 22 balance. So that's when he is running out of money during the month. So what can Raphael do, or at least try to do, because sometimes changing expenses around isn't possible, but what can he do to better match the timing of his income and expenses? Is there any kind of big expense that he has in week 1 that could potentially be moved or broken out over a few weeks? So switch some expenses to week 4. Buy groceries second and fourth week. He could request to change the due dates on some of his bills. Yep. Ask his landlord if they're willing to accept multiple payments for rent. Maybe groceries week 4. Rent could be broken up. So yeah, so rent is definitely a big expense he has the first week of the month at $845. He could see if his landlord would accept rent payment the second week of the month instead of the first. You know, that gets tricky, but it could be possible. He could see if he could make a payment the first week of the month, and then in the second half of the month too for rent. Somebody said if he gets paid every other week, it seems like he will get out of sync regularly with monthly expenses. Change his payment dates for loan and rent payment to second week. Yep, that was a suggestion I had too in my notes. And then payments for childcare on weeks 2 and 3 and none on week 1 and 3. And then maybe pay childcare twice a month instead of 100. That's true, break that expense up. And then buying groceries makes sense to buy when SNAP comes in, for sure. Another suggestion I also had was, yeah, so there's the student loan payment can be moved, and then maybe see if the auto payment can be moved as well. And then take a look at miscellaneous and eating out. So maybe reduce those expenses or move those, because those are a little bit easier to move during the month than set payments. And then eat out less times per month, get rid of TV expenses since he has internet. That's true. Okay, so my next question is, how does the SNAP benefit factor into the cash flow? Someone did kind of mention it, but let's see if other people have some things to say about that. So somebody did say previously that it makes sense to buy groceries when SNAP comes in. And so SNAP is important because it covers food, and kind of in his cash flow scenario, it makes it look like he has more money, more cash during the first week than he actually does, because SNAP can only be used for food. So buying groceries, it could make sense to buy groceries the first week of the month when SNAP comes in, but then not to confuse that SNAP amount with cash that could be used for other things too. And then, although we cannot see the next month of his cash flow, what do you think Raphael's situation will be at the beginning of the next month? How much cash will he have? And kind of what bills will he have, and how might it be best for him to prepare for the next month? So it looks like he'll have 361.78. Yep, that's right. So he can put that at the top of his cash flow for the next month. Won't be able to cover rent again. That is very true. So somebody asked, is this person buying in bulk such as Costco, or is this person making multiple trips to the grocery store? That I don't know, but that could be a trick for him. So maybe he doesn't have to make as many grocery trips during the month. So really at this point, if kind of nothing changes with his cash flow scenario, his situation will be the exact same the next month. He won't have enough to pay for rent the first week. And really one of the biggest solutions is getting more income for him to improve his cash flow the following month. So making sure he has all the benefits he can qualify for. And then once he has made sure he's applied for all of his benefits that he can, looking at increasing income to make sure he has that appropriate cash flow. And then somebody said, continue to search for a job that will pay better. And that's true. And I think we're going to move on because we are running low on time and we have a couple more tools to present to you guys. So I'm going to hand it off to Anna.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Emily. I'm going to be talking about improving cash flow. So basically, as you can see on the screen, there are three main strategies to improving cash flow. The first is increasing your source of financial resources, just like Emily was just talking about, accessing public benefits or applying for tax credits. The second is decreasing your spending or uses of your cash and resources wherever possible, and then matching timing of sources and using income whenever possible, just like Emily was just talking about. So if we'll move on to the next slide, then we can open up the improving cash flow tool. Thank you so much, Donna. And once that opens, we'll scroll on down past the getting started page, and we can see on the left side here, Your Money, Your Goals has identified a list of strategies such as negotiating due dates, negotiating larger payments into two smaller payments, such as splitting rent up, exploring options for debt consolidation. There's many more strategies. If we continue to scroll down, just in the interest of time, I won't go through every single one, but I recommend opening the tool and taking a look through whenever you have time. And then in the next column over, the things to consider column, you can see the helpful tips and tricks to each individual strategy. So if a client identifies, negotiating payments to different days, then one of the helpful tips in there is, working with creditors that you have a good standing relationship with initially. And then on the far right, there's a questions section that's fillable for you and your client to type in any questions or ideas that you have for addressing the individual strategy that the client has identified as something they want to commit to working on. And then overall, I think this tool is super helpful to help clients really narrow their focus down to the strategies that fit their unique needs and lives the absolute best. So if we go back to the slideshow, please. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next slide where we'll dive into the adjusting your cash flow tool. Thank you, Donna. And this tool is meant to help you and your clients lay out all of their income and expenses on a calendar to really help visualize the cash flow to make it easier to make adjustments. Because I know for me, when I'm just conceptualizing an idea, that's one thing, but when I can actually see something in front of me and play around with it, that's a lot more easier for me to understand. So it's a really handy tool. It's completely fillable to allow you and your clients to change the cash flow each month or every few months, depending on what fits for their life the best. And it allows them to move due dates around to see how these changes would impact their cash flow. Thank you, Donna, for showing us how that works. So the cash flow budget is really a projection of how your client is going to use their cash and other financial resources throughout a month. So this is the type of budget, as we've discussed, that's really different from a regular budget because it includes not only the amount for each budget item, but also the timing of income and expenses. And this is extremely vital because people often find themselves with feeling like they have more cash one week, maybe after payday, which could lead to overspending or maybe a little bit of splurging, and then feeling strapped for cash another week and feeling financially short. So truly, when it comes to budgeting, timing matters. So the cash flow budget is something that really helps clients identify where in the month they may be falling short to help a client ensure that they have enough financial resources on hand to cover the most important expenses. So maybe they won't miss rent, for example, if that's what they identify as a top priority for them. And it can also help folks identify areas where they might be able to consider cutting back. But it is really important to recognize that sometimes there just isn't enough income or money in a month to cover all expenses. So in that case, it's important to develop a short-term plan with clients to prioritize bills, such as the bill prioritization that Joy talked about earlier, that tool. And so it's important to really prioritize bills that protect income, shelter, assets, and continue obligations. So this can really help in moments when maybe a debt collector is calling about a lower priority debt. So you know how to respond and can remember those prioritizations you'd already went over. And when making these decisions, it's important to understand the consequences and know that money not paid today will be debt in the future. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. Thanks so much. So this is sort of a summation wrap-up slide, just some friendly suggestions for tools and conversations that you can have with your client depending on how much time you have with them. So if you have 10 minutes working on the improving cash flow tool, 30 minutes, the adjusting your cash flow, or multiple sessions, you can really deep dive into creating a cash flow budget, similar to what Emily just went over. So ultimately, it's very important to remember that a cash flow budget is meant to help someone understand the timing of their income expenses and how shortfalls within a month, identifying where those happen, and static monthly budgets can often hide where those shortfalls happen. And so if you work with your clients to let them know the following steps, they can really develop an important, well-informed cash flow budget. So starting with keeping track of everything they earn and spend in 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever feels manageable for them. If they just start with 1 week, that's great. And then moving on from that income tracking to the income and benefits tracker tool for module 3, and then the spending tracker for module 4 in conjunction really creates a well-rounded analysis of their spending. So then they can have a thoughtful cash flow budget. And then when doing the cash flow budget, it's also, it's also really important to remind clients to include their savings goals, large purchases, life events, because the cash flow budget is ultimately all about setting targets for your financial goals and how you want to use your income moving forward. So thank you so much. That's my time. We'll move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Juana. And I believe that takes us to the end of our presentation today. Does anyone have any questions over the materials that we covered? We're happy to hold the last couple of minutes here for any of your questions. All right, Well, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email them to myself or another member of the Hopelink team. For those of you who are following this training series to get certified, we do encourage you to fill out the post-survey link, which I put here in the chat. The registration process for the next iteration of this training is going to look a little bit different. You should be receiving a follow-up email in the next couple of weeks explaining that process. We really appreciate all of you for taking time out of your day to join us. On behalf of myself at the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness, as well as the fabulous housing case management staff at Hopelink, we want to say thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day today.